all right, something like that. There are many relations in graph database. So in Azure, we have some service to handle those graph database. So this is NoSQL. And why is NoSQL becoming more famous? Because in NoSQL, we don't have the concept join. Okay, join normally is quite expensive in query because I may have thousands of record in a single table, another millions of record in another table, and then we need to reference to join them together. Okay, so in NoSQL, we don't have this concept join. When we store the data in SSD or even in memory, we just simply store the data and simply look up the data. So the response is much quicker, okay, much faster. Could be 5 times, 10 times. If you store in memory, could be 50, 100 times faster than normal traditional database. So it is how it looks like in NoSQL. Yeah, we have customer table, and then we store, let's say, the name of your customer. And then as you can see here in this item, we store title, and then the address a little bit different. Here we store home business, and then here we store suppose these people have UK address, US address, and then you can see the data inside is a little bit different. Okay, so it's semi-structured in this non-relational database. So we don't have fixed schema. When we write the data, okay, then we don't need to understand the schema first. But how you are going to analyze the data is related to database design. So we store the data in same collection. Normally here we still have table, but we don't call it a record because record row column is to people's point of view is quite fixed. Here normally we call it item, all right, a single item, and then those things inside we call it attribute, all right, and then we use label to define. This is the number for business phone number, and this is for mobile. We have a lot of label to identify those data. And how you are going to process data, you use the label together with the value. All right. Okay. So next, let's take a look on the use case related to this NoSQL, because NoSQL could be much faster. So we can, of course, the IoT environment we can use, and then gaming. Gaming is a very good choice. Think about people pay with the game. We have the scoreboard. When we finish, we got a very high score. The game company want all the world, all the people know the result immediately. All right. So games that the leaderboard for sport, the current score. Yeah. So marketing, financial, anything you want very fast result. You can use NoSQL. I can actually share with you a real case in some hotel booking website. The comment, all right, is very important because when I book a hotel, also I will focus on the comment, what the previous customer think about, let's say, convenience, facility, friendly, food. The comment from the customer is very different, all right? And we don't have any fixed structure. You can type whatever you want. This is one example that some big hotel website, they use NoSQL to store those comments in their production environment, all right? So next, actually, this is related to data warehouse. Okay, we talk about what is structured data and then non-structured data. And then for data warehouse, what's the difference? People often compare data lake and data warehouse. For data lake, actually, I would say the data is unprocessed, all right? Or in other words, defer your process, defer your processing to a later time, okay? An example is just like a reservoir. Okay, when there is raining, we store the rain, store the water by using reservoir. But is not yet processed. And the data warehouse is just like the bottled water. It's already processed. More or less should be more structured. All right. So for the data warehouse here, we focus on the BI, business intelligence, answering question. We have different family, different service related to this topic. First of all, the Azure Data Factory. Okay, and the key function of the Azure Data Factory is doing the ETL job. All right, E means extract, and then T means transform, and then L means load. So suppose you have multiple source. You may have some data still in Excel, SS, and then some CSV file, and from internet, okay, from Twitter, all right, or from any feed. So we integrate, extract those data, and then do some transformation. We may use sampling, filter, union, or also a lot of calculation method inside to sum up and then transform those data and then load to a destination. Okay, the destination could be a data warehouse. All right, and so if you already pay with Microsoft SQL, traditionally in the on-prem environment, we have the SSIS, SQL Server Integrated Service. So the Azure Data Factory is more or less the cloud version of integrated service. Okay, and of course we have data lake. Actually, our unprocessed data, we find somewhere to store the data first. Could be structured, could be unstructured, or even semi-structured data. All right. So we at that moment we may not know how to process the data. Just keep a copy and then store there first, and then later on we will process the data. And how to process the data, and then we can take a look on these two family. Before I talk about this Azure Database and then the HD Insight, traditionally in on-prem environment, I think since 2003, 2004, something like that, people start building a Hadoop cluster. Okay, I don't know whether you heard about this name before. Hadoop cluster is focused on big data. So we have a lot of powerful machine, and then we store the data in those machines, and those we have distributed storage. Instead of using shared storage, you just have normal server, and then the data will be distributed across the node. Okay, and then because the data we have multiple copy, so that even if something goes down, fail, you will not lose your data. Okay, in another node, you will also have the same data. All right. So in the Hadoop cluster, traditional Hadoop cluster, we store the data there, and then we use those compute resources to process those data. All right. That's why we use something like Spark. This is one choice. We have Hive. We have also Presto, Pig, something like that, to process not only structured data, but also semi-structured, unstructured data. And before I mentioned Presto, Presto is actually load all the data into memory. So it is very fast, but not so scalable. Because if you got really exabyte, petabyte of data, it is very hard to load everything into memory. So Spark is really good. It's a company, all right, and then originally open source, and then they set up the company, and then the Spark, the data to process could come from memory. We could use memory, and we can also use this. So it is much scalable because we can leverage the disk. And then the Spark, the people who create Spark, create a company called Databricks. All right, so Azure, we can leverage, use those Spark technology in order to analyze those structure, semi-structure, or even stream data. Stream data, the definition is more or less continuously. All right, and then Azure HD Insight, we can create different types of cluster. We can also create Hadoop cluster in order to process your data. But in cloud, in Azure, we can decouple. By decouple, it means this data that we store, we can store in a lot of different type of storage. And then to process, we can use this service. However, after you finish the process, we might terminate those processing power. The most important is your data. Okay, your data maybe in some other Azure service like blob service, file service, or even the data warehouse. And the final component in the data warehouse is this is actually syntax. It's the data warehouse. It's the structured data warehouse to store your historical data. We keep append the data there. And then finally, we use SQL statement to query those syntax data warehouse data. And before we talk about columnize, and this database engine, this data warehouse engine is using columnize to store the data. All right, so this is the introduction of what is the data warehouse. Okay, so I think it is about time to pass back to Lila. And then if you've got any questions, you can ask, and hopefully I can answer most of your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. Okay, so we are going to have a question and answer session. But before we get to that, we are actually going to hear from Mary, and she is our Director of Vendor and Product. She's going to introduce some of our promotions and webinar related courses. So while we're hearing from her, go ahead and get all of your questions into the question and answer panel. And Mary, let's make you the presenter.
Leela. Hello, everybody.
Hello, thank you for joining us. You should be able to share your screen.
My pleasure. So while you were adding all your questions, I'd love to discuss with you a few information that we have for you so you can review it, see what's next step. The mere fact that you attended this webinar shows your interest in data. And there are some steps that I'd like to recommend to you. First of all, this is our website. And when you go to the Microsoft page, there are some information here that you may want to look into. If you're if you're working on your learning plan, this is the first step to do. Go into the Microsoft role-based certification. And once you do that, you will have an overview of what are the steps. So let me just expand this. It's too small. I can't even see it. So the way Microsoft is structured is that there are different solution areas. One of the areas that was discussed today was about Azure Data and AI. Now, if you want to build that fundamental knowledge, there are actually three areas under Azure that you may want to look at. The first one is the Azure Fundamentals, which gives you that broad overview of what Azure is, sort of give you the concepts that you can build on. And then if you'd like to have an instructor-led training, then you may want to consider the Azure Data Fundamentals. And then related to it is the Azure AI Fundamentals. If you look at the entire document, this is how Microsoft structures learning so that you can have a solid foundation, whether you're working on M365 or you are into business applications such as Dynamics 365 and Power Platform. And then way down is the security, compliance, and identity. And as you look into this somehow gives you the different roles based on the certification. And so say, for example, if you are an administrator, this is the certification that you want to target. And if you click on this, it will actually bring you to the certification page and how you can prepare for it. The same way that when you click on this actually brings you to the course itself, what you would be taking. As always, what we're discussing right now is just a piece of the puzzle, a very brief overview of the subject matter. And as Leela said, this is part of a broad subject that if you'd really like to build that skill, I would highly recommend you to join the instructor-led class that also includes labs, that will get you to try on the concepts. Also, make sure that you're able to transfer that knowledge from the classroom to the workplace. Now, lastly, I just want to, share with you a bit as well, because Microsoft always, and I guess not just, Microsoft, but in every role that you have right now, the best way to validate that is through certification. Now, there's a lot of slides here. I'm not going through this all, but just wanted to give you stats as to, what is the industry looking at in terms of certification. As they say, cloud is accelerating the skills gap. And why is that? Because there's new things happening. There's new innovation happening, new products, new services that Microsoft is creating for the cloud. So based on the statistics, we can say that CIOs, they have a cloud first IT strategy. Companies are seeing the value of moving to the cloud, saving them money, being able to go to market faster, being able to move different workloads. And in fact, now we see companies having multi-cloud solutions. And because of this, they feel like only 60% of the organizations find that they have the right skills. So the remaining organizations feel like they really need that skilling plan so that they can move their people or their team from on-prem to the cloud. Now, I just want to jump over so that I can, give it back for your questions. But I'd like you to see as well that if you are new to Azure, I would recommend you getting into the Azure Fundamentals. And there is a 1-day class and a 2-day class. So the 1-day class is basically more discussion, and then the 2-day class, if you prefer hands-on, and I would highly recommend that to go for the 2-day class. And with this actually gives you the preparation for the Azure Fundamentals certification. Okay. And if just like you attended here, if you'd also love to get certified, because this is the tangible way for your company to recognize your ability that you have good understanding on data fundamentals, then take the DP 900 training, and then you can take the exam. Also, we find that some who are into data are also getting into AI. So you have your AI 900, and after completing that class, this 1-day class, you can actually take the fundamentals. One of the most popular classes that we see is Power BI. So there is a class for that. If you're an analyst, then DA 100 is one popular class that we find the customers are gravitating to, because this is actually the new role-based class if you're familiar with the old course 20778. So there's a lot of promotions that you can get into. We encourage you to go to the promotions page, or if you plan to attend more of these webinars, we invite you as well to look into the upcoming webinars that you'll see also not just about Microsoft, but about other practice areas, or about other technologies, such as you have Cisco coming up on the 14th. And if you are already having that fundamentals and you are an admin, you'd like to hear more about the Azure Administrator Masterclass, this is coming up on Saturday. So we invite you for that. And there's a lot more. So with that, one thing more that I forgot, if you're interested to take an exam, there is a 20% discount. So as I said earlier, Microsoft is really putting an emphasis, trying to help individuals, companies get certified, because that is the way, if you're looking for a job, or you are getting for a promotion, or if you are a decision maker that you'd like to know that everybody in the team has the right skill, then the way to go is by getting them through the certification. It is a good benchmark, because the certification is not just about the concept, but there's also practical and scenario-based questions there. So the best way, if you're interested, email us at webinar@netcomlearning.com. We'll give you the discount code so you can get that savings. Leela, I hope I didn't eat much of the time. Let me get it back to you.
You're totally good. Thank you so much, Mary. And before you do whatever you need to do, before you mute yourself, I do know we have a few people who are asking if there is any sort of certificate of participation or any sort of certificate for today's webinar.
There is. So just go to let me just bring back my screen if you don't mind.
Oh.
Let me just briefly like show them where to get it.
Yes, you should be able to share.
Give me 2 seconds. So here, going to our website, you have Netcom 365. Enter your email, the one you signed up for, and just click on forget password, okay? And just enter your new password. Or you will find there that you can download your certificate of completion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And all of the PowerPoints for today are in the handout section. Is that correct?
That is correct. And you can
Okay.
always view this. This is recorded, so you can always view this after, I think, 24 or 48 hours.
Wonderful. Yeah, I believe it says that the playback will be sent to you via email in the next 24 hours. I think it's the standard unless it's on a weekend.
Yes.
So perfect. Thank you, Mary, so much. Okay, let's see. We're going to jump into some more questions that are a little more geared towards Brian. Our next question is, what is the difference between data lake and data warehouse?
Okay, that's a very good question. Actually, data lake is the data that not yet processed. We simply store the data there first. And the data could be structured, unstructured, or semi-structured. But data warehouse normally is the data is already processed by the Azure Databricks, processed by the HD Insight or some other method. But the data that we process already they are very structured. Okay, so we can simply use SQL statement to query those data warehouse. To sum up, the unprocessed and processed data between data lake and data warehouse.
Thank you. Let's see. Right now, I'm only seeing one other question. We kind of just covered all the questions so far. So if you do have questions that are coming in, please go ahead and get those in, because once we are through with the questions, we'll wrap up today's webinar. So we have a question that says, I've registered for the webinar on October 9th. I might be able to join a bit later. Is it possible to join a bit later during a webinar? Mary?
You can certainly do that. This particular webinar on Saturday will be recorded as well. Not all webinars are recorded, just FYI, because there are certain, each vendor response or sponsoring it has certain requirements. But this one is on Saturday. If you attended 80% of it, you do get a certificate of completion.
Thank you so much. Okay, one more question, and I think we'll be wrapping up. How could today's columnar storage help on database?
Okay. Actually, before we talk a little bit on columnar, to sum up, the columnar storage means when you do the analytic, not OLTP, not transactional. When you're doing the analytic processing query, you will scan much less data. Okay, you will scan just the data that you want, so less I/O, and then another benefit of using columnar storage is that the compression, okay, could be much higher comparing with normal traditional row-based storage. So to sum up, by using columnar storage for analytic database, data warehousing, the query could be much faster. Okay.
Thank you so much. It looks like one other question did come in. It says, is there any limitation on Azure database for connecting, storing for third-party application data?
There is actually limitation for everything, but yeah, the cloud is keep improving. We need to go to check the most updated Azure documentation. Let's say file, block, what are the maximum number? Okay, but today may be different from tomorrow. So we take a look on the most updated information from official page.
Thank you so much. With that, I think we've gotten through all of our questions. So we're going to go ahead now and launch a poll to find out how many people might be interested in taking some additional training. In addition to today's webinar, we have a lot of informative webinars that are coming up. So please go to www.netcomlearning.com/webinars/ to register for any of those. We want to thank you all for joining us today. If you do come up with any additional questions, you can feel free to send them to us at webinar@netcomlearning.com at any time. We want to thank you all for joining us. We hope that you found today's webinar informative, and we look forward to seeing you back here with us very soon. Also, feel free to share the love, tell your friends and colleagues about our webinars and other courses. Once again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Brian, for presenting, and Mary for letting us know about the specials and webinars coming up. And thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.